So I'm going to read to you a sensationalistic post that I wrote on January 20th, 2011, 13 years ago. It's about college, when I was in my early 20s. For school, a science class was essential to satisfy my degree requirements. I wanted to take the easiest possible class for the stress-free A. One day I was pursuing the course catalog and saw environmental science. Instead of taking biology, chemistry, I took environmental science, thinking, how bad can this be? The first day of class, I could sense there were problems. The environmental science professor introduced himself as Dr. Francis DuPont. He was sitting at his desk all unhappy. His voice was deep, depressed, and manly. DuPont began to hand out index cards, and his attitude was all, what's the point of life? What's the point of filling out these index cards? The best way to summarize DuPont is a crazy, disheartened nature lover. After filling out the information on the cards, he showed us a video of overpopulation. At the end, he asked, can humans keep growing? Will overpopulation lead to our downfall as a species? Then he very dramatically whispered, I'll see you next time. In the coming weeks, DuPont would tell us how there's no such thing as economy, politics. The reality is everything is just nature. A natural disaster or the environment can wipe humans off the face of the planet. The world we know will be gone forever, but the earth will still go on. DuPont had all the students terrified of impending disasters we would be facing in our lifetime. Every day he'd depress the class with some new apocalyptic scenario. He was convinced we were going to face serious crisis within the next 50 years. It got to the point where it became a joke. We heard human tragedy stories from global warming, to nuclear war, to starvation, to a comet hitting the earth. It was endless. Before the class, all the students were in the hall joking. They asked, how do you think the human race will go extinct today? And two professors overheard the class, laughed, and asked, he talks about that in your class too? Apparently in the teacher's lounge, that's all he talked about. Dr. Francis DuPont had to be single, because no woman would be able to stand his doom and gloom. He refuses to mow his lawn and cut his grass and remove bushes and trees because that's what the Scotts Corporation tells you the perfect lawn should look like. It's not environmentally healthy. He had these glass bottles he filled up with purified water at home. Dr. DuPont felt the plastic from the plastic water bottles outgassed into the liquids. Humans are not meant to ingest plastic, so he would not consume anything plastic. Another day, Dr. DuPont was talking about our food supply. The coral reefs are disappearing. We are fishing out the ocean. Animals are going extinct. We are destroying our environment. Pretty soon we won't have enough food. And he says, food doesn't just appear on the supermarket shelves. We have to put it there. He exclaimed, society no longer seems to grasp this concept. Dr. DuPont said, we are just one disaster away from turning into savages. He said, you think all these civilized Americans and love their neighbor, but picture this, you are starving while your neighbor is eating a delicious ham, laughing next door, and your stomach is growling. What would you do? Dr. DuPont strongly implied we'd kill our neighbor for the food. He said our generation was lazy. No one wanted to put in hard work anymore. Dr. Francis DuPont said he'd rather give the entire class D's than award the class A's for mediocre effort. He didn't understand why we are now supposed to reward the stupid and lazy. As a result, it was very difficult to do well in his class. There were times Dr. Francis DuPont would say something completely outrageous, like in 10 years the entire country will have brain cancer from cell phones. No one wanted to speak up because if he disliked you, he would deliberately give you poor grades. So either you agreed or you sat silently. Dr. DuPont had his favorite students in the class. I made the mistake of coming back from break 5 minutes early. When I returned, Dr. DuPont and some liberal kid were sitting, talking, saying things like, it's real scary what business has done. I had to leave and get some coffee and come back when the room filled up a bit more. I couldn't stand to listen to these two. But there were people Dr. DuPont resented. Anyone who had the guts to disagree with him, these kids were going to get graded more harshly. You had to remain seated, quiet. If you got up to use the bathroom, Dr. DuPont would stop his lecture, put the spotlight on you and ask, "Leaving?" If your behavior annoyed DuPont, he'd single you out. Dr. DuPont refused to use a cell phone. He resented cell phones and used a beeper for emergencies. So one time my cell phone started vibrating in class and my heart started to race. I didn't want DuPont to notice and humiliate me. Fortunately, I was quickly able to hit the silent button. Jack, he would get 40s on all his tests, disagree with DuPont, and didn't care about the environment. As a result, DuPont had a grudge against Jack. Almost every lecture, Jack's cell phone would ring, and he would never turn it off. He would get up, leave the room, and go to the bathroom. And DuPont would try to shame him, saying, "Every day? It's like clockwork, Jack." But Jack didn't care. There is no way Jack managed to pass that class. At the beginning of the semester, Dr. Francis DuPont claimed, "His class is like a theater. Once it begins, it should not be disrupted." He didn't want anybody leaving the room. He felt we should sit inaudibly and control our thirsts and bladders for an hour. To me, it was just a boring lecture, but DuPont thought he was performing this magical spectacle that we were all lucky to be witnessing. Once Dr. Francis DuPont referred to himself as one of the great thinkers of the world. It was quite ridiculous. One class there was this construction worker who dared to disrupt the show. The worker was hammering next door. So Dr. DuPont summoned him into the classroom. He began to insult and belittle the man, saying, "Don't you know there is a lecture going on? How dare you interrupt?" Then he dismissed him by saying, "Go buy yourself a beer or do something productive. You won't get fired, you're union." The construction worker tried to unintelligently mumble something back, but he had no idea what to say. Dr. DuPont was enormously into animal liberation and once stated, "From the planet's point of view, humans and animals are exactly the same." Actually, he felt humans, if anything, are worse. Every other animal is peacefully living amongst nature. Then when you look at the human, we are toxic to the planet. We give back nothing productive to our environment, and from a planetary point of view, possess no redeeming qualities. Dr. DuPont felt all other animals are probably looking at us wondering, when are they going to understand? He said, even though a wild animal may not be solving calculus, it is still far more intelligent than any human being. The feelings Dr. DuPont had for animals were so extreme. He once said, "I love my mom, but if I had to decide who should live, my mom or my dog, it would be a tough decision." Anyone who would put their dog and mother on the same level is very into animal rights. Every lecture we were watching some kind of disturbing video. One time DuPont showed us this peaceful video where a lion attacked a deer, consumed it, and ate the prey. But compared to the next video, it was peaceful, because then he showed us how humans got our meat. It was hardcore, anti-corporate slaughterhouse video. The video was brutal and gruesome and made you feel terrible for animals. Afterwards, he wrapped up the lecture with the definition of humane. He read from the dictionary, humane, marked by compassion, sympathy, or consideration for humans or animals. He slammed the dictionary closed and said, "I'll see you next time." Every night I'd tell my mom about Dr. DuPont. So one class, while I was in class, she called the science department hysterically complaining. So I came back from break and the professor was informed of a complaint over break. Well, he returns and I immediately knew, oh no, my mom called. I tried to put on my best poker face. He said, "Someone called the school with accusations that are just laughable." Ha ha! I started to sweat. I think he suspected it was my parents. He's like, "I'm just going to give out dittos and make the class do textbook work from now on." I want to have an interesting class, but if I receive complaints like this, it makes you want to give dry lectures out of the textbook. There was a mandatory class trip that we took to a water pollution control plant. it was worth 20% of our class grade, and it was the last thing we had to do. When I told my mom, she said, "Your uncle works there. You should tell Dr. DuPont. Maybe he could give you a special tour and you'll get bonus points." I said, "No thanks. The last thing I wanted to do was have him meet anyone I know." So when the day finally arrived, Dr. DuPont came up driving in a fancy hybrid car. Since he obviously valued his precious car, he parked half a mile away from every other car. This made Jack laugh, who claimed he knew DuPont had a hybrid car. Then he comes pompously walking over, dressed in black, with dark sunglasses, like an environmental superstar. When he finally gets up to us, he says, "Are you ready?" Not talking to anyone specifically, he was just full of himself. Dr. DuPont was acting like after today your life will never be the same again. We go inside the building and there was a tour guide who was giving us a monotoned, dull explanation of how the filtering process works. He was actually happy to be showing us his job, but Dr. DuPont didn't care about the purification of water. He kept asking this guy questions like, "Doesn't this cause dead zones in the ocean?" The tour guide would answer his questions with like, "I don't know, this is just what I do." Dr. DuPont was the only one getting excited, but he thought he was exposing some big secret to the class, some big unknown secret. The tour guide took us from room to room. He said, "In this room, this is where the bugs eat the bugs." He was going to move on, but Dr. DuPont interrupted him, saying, "This is where the bacteria breaks down the waste product?" DuPont was treating the guy who asked to show us around like some sort of simpleton. No one in the class was really intrigued about the plant or Dr. DuPont's messages. We were all bored and wanted to go home. Somehow I don't think Dr. DuPont was aware no one cared. He was extremely condescending and sarcastic. He would comment on the tour guides. He would comment on the tour guide constantly. Dr. DuPont was acting like the class should be seeing something, like our world should be changing. He was dismissing the guy as if he was a societal idiot. Dr. DuPont said things like, "This is just one plant. Now think of this all over the world." After that painful 45 minutes, I was finally done with environmental science. I wound up getting a B-.